I still remember the exact moment my mom and I found out. It was like the air had been sucked out of the room. My dad, the man who had always been my rock, my protector, had been lying to us for months. He was having an affair with a woman from his office, Lisa. My mom found messages first, late-night texts, little love notes, plans to meet up when he was supposedly working late. She confronted him, and he didn't even try to deny it. He just stood there, shifting on his feet, looking more inconvenienced than guilty. That's what hurt the most. Not the betrayal, but how little it seemed to mean to him. Then Lisa had the audacity to approach us. She showed up at our house saying she wanted to clear the air. She wasn't apologetic. She wasn't ashamed. Instead, she started talking about how her ex was a deadbeat and how my dad was so good to her son. She actually expected us to welcome them, to accept the new normal with grace because, in her words, a little boy's chance to grow up with a father figure was on the line. My mom told her exactly where she could go. I didn't hold back either. I told her she was delusional if she thought we'd ever see her as anything but the woman who helped destroy our family. My mom made it clear she wasn't welcome in our home, and Lisa finally left, acting like she was the victim. But the damage was done. My family was broken. And no matter what Lisa or my dad wanted, I knew one thing for sure. I wanted nothing to do with either of them. After everything came out, my parents separated. My mom filed for divorce almost immediately, but because I was still 17, custody had to be decided by a judge. I made it crystal clear that I wanted nothing to do with my dad. If it were up to me, I would have cut him out of my life the second I found out about the affair. But the court didn't care about what I wanted. The judge ruled that I had to spend every other weekend with my dad until I turned 18. It was a compromise. My dad wanted more time. I wanted none. So the court landed somewhere in the middle. Those weekends were miserable. Lisa was always there, acting like she was just another parent in my life. She kept trying to befriend me, asking me questions about school, my friends, my plans for the future. It was exhausting. And worse, she kept pushing her son, Jake, onto me, like we were supposed to be some happy little blended family. She'd encourage him to call me his big sister, to play with me, to sit next to me at dinner. I wanted no part of it. One night, she tried her speech again. The same nonsense about how Jake deserved a stable family, how I should be grateful that my dad found someone who made him happy, how I should try to move on. I cut her off. I told her I didn't care about her kid, that he wasn't my responsibility, and I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. I saw the way her face fell, but I didn't regret saying it. I meant it. But at the same time, I couldn't be cruel to a child. When Jake was around, I was polite. I never encouraged him, but I didn't push him away either. And unfortunately, that was enough for him to get attached to me. I wasn't attached to him, not even a little. If anything, I resented how he kept seeking me out, how he looked at me like I was someone important to him. I wasn't. I never would be. But I wasn't going to be the person who made a little kid cry, so I just tolerated it. Tolerated all of it, until I didn't have to anymore. Turning 18 was supposed to be a celebration, but for me, the best part was knowing I was finally free. No more court-ordered weekends, no more pretending, no more Lisa, no more Jake, and most importantly, no more Dad. The moment I was legally an adult, I stopped going to his house. I didn't even have a dramatic goodbye. I just left one Sunday and never went back. My dad tried to reach out. He called, he texted, he even showed up at my school once, trying to talk to me. But I ignored him every time. A few weeks after my birthday, the divorce was finalized. My mom and I were officially free of him. I thought that would be the end of it. But he still wouldn't accept that things had changed. He kept telling me he didn't want his affair to ruin our relationship, that I'd always be his little girl, that he still loved me. I told him love doesn't mean anything without respect, and that he had lost mine the second he chose Lisa over our family. He begged me to go to therapy with him, said we could fix things. I refused. I wasn't broken. I wasn't the one who needed fixing. I told him if he had been unhappy with my mom, he should have left her before getting involved with someone else. That divorce happens, but cheating is disgusting. That he had disrespected my mother, our family, and me. And that he had no right to ask me to forgive and forget just because it was convenient for him. He didn't like that. He kept pushing, saying Lisa wasn't the enemy, that she made him happy, that I was being unfair. I shut him down every time. I knew he wanted me to come around, to accept his new life, his new family. But I never would. Because from the moment he betrayed us, he stopped being my dad. Even after I cut my dad off, Lisa still tried to force herself into my life. She acted like we had some kind of unfinished business, like I just needed more time to see things her way. One afternoon, I was walking out of a coffee shop when I saw her waiting for me outside, just standing there, arms crossed, like she had something important to say. I sighed, already exhausted, but before I could walk past her, she spoke. "Emily, can we talk?" I didn't stop walking. "No." She fell into step beside me. "I just want to clear the air. I don't think you ever really gave me a chance." I let out a sharp laugh. "A chance? You mean like the one you gave my mom?" She flinched but kept going. "Look, I know you're angry. I understand why. But you have to realize that your dad was unhappy. He and your mom weren't in love anymore. It was going to happen eventually." I stopped walking. If that was true, then he should have left her first. He didn't. He lied. He snuck around. And you helped him. Lisa sighed, like she was the one who was tired of this conversation. I just wanted to say, I hope one day you'll see that this wasn't about hurting you or your mom. It was about love. I shook my head. No, it was about selfishness. And if you really believed any of this crap, you wouldn't be chasing after an 18-year-old, begging her to pretend you're a decent person. Her face hardened. "Jake really looks up to you, you know. He misses you." I exhaled sharply. "Then that's your problem, not mine." I could see it in her eyes, that moment of realization that I wasn't going to budge, that no amount of guilt-tripping or speeches about love was going to change how I felt. Lisa thought she could wear me down, that if she just kept pushing, I'd finally accept her kid, accept everything. But she was wrong. Because I would never see her as anything but the woman who helped destroy my family. A few months passed without any contact, no texts, no unwanted visits, just silence, and I was fine with that. But then, out of nowhere, I got an invitation. It was for Jake's birthday party. At first, I thought it was some kind of mistake. Why would they even think I'd want to be there? But then I saw my dad's name on it, along with a note. "I know things are complicated, but Jake would love to see you. Please consider coming." I didn't even bother responding. I wasn't going, and they should have known that. But apparently, ignoring it wasn't enough. My dad complained to my grandparents that I had no-showed the party, and suddenly they were on my case. They called me up, asking why I didn't go. They said Jake had been excited to see me, that I hurt his feelings by not showing up. They talked about how hard it was for him, how he saw me as family, how I was breaking a little boy's heart. I didn't sugarcoat my response. He's not my family, he's not my responsibility, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise just to make everyone else feel better. They were shocked, like I was the villain for refusing to play along with this fantasy. They kept saying, "But he's just a kid," as if that changed anything. I told them the truth. I never asked to be in his life. I never wanted this. And I'm not going to stay in a situation that makes me miserable just to keep him happy. They didn't like that. They wanted me to feel guilty, to second-guess myself. But I didn't. Because at the end of the day, I wasn't the one who put him in this position. That was on my dad and Lisa, and I wasn't going to clean up their mess. My grandparents didn't let it go. After the birthday party incident, they kept bringing it up every chance they got. Every phone call, every visit. It always circled back to Jake. They made it sound like I had abandoned him, like I had some kind of duty to this kid just because my dad decided to play stepfather. "You were a big part of his life," my grandmother said one evening. "He looks up to you." I sighed, already tired of the conversation. Not by choice. I never wanted that. "But he's a child," my grandfather argued. "He doesn't understand all of this. To him, you just disappeared." I rolled my eyes. Then maybe his actual parents should explain it to him. That shut them up for a second, but they regrouped quickly. My grandmother shook her head, disappointment all over her face. "I don't like who you're becoming, Emily. This bitterness, this anger, it's not you." I felt something sharp twist in my chest, but I refused to let it show. "Maybe you should take a look at your son then, because I don't like who he became either." That ended the conversation. They didn't call me for a while after that. I thought maybe they'd finally given up, that they'd realized I wasn't going to change my mind. I was wrong. I had just finished a long shift at work and was walking home, exhausted and ready to collapse into bed. The last thing I wanted was a confrontation. But fate had other plans. Lisa was waiting for me near the corner of my street. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Maybe she was just passing by. But the second she locked eyes with me, I knew she had been waiting. "Emily!" she called, stepping toward me. I kept walking. "Go away." She ignored that. "I just need to talk to you. It won't take long." I stopped and turned to her. "What part of 'leave me alone' do you not understand?" She exhaled, like she was trying to stay patient. "Look, I know you hate me, but this isn't about me. It's about Jake. He misses you. He doesn't understand why you won't see him anymore." I clenched my jaw. "That's not my problem. He cried on his birthday," she continued, as if that was supposed to make me feel bad. "He kept asking when you'd show up. He doesn't get why you disappeared." I felt a flash of irritation. Not at Jake, at her. "Then maybe you should stop filling his head with lies. I was never going to be his sister. You forced that idea on him." Lisa's expression hardened. "You don't have to be cruel, Emily. He's just a kid." I let out a sharp laugh. "No, what's cruel is dragging me into this mess and expecting me to fix something I never broke. I didn't ask for any of this. And I'm done pretending." Her lips parted like she had more to say, but I was finished. I turned on my heel and walked away. I thought that would be the end of it, but she just wouldn't let it go. Lisa didn't take the hint. Instead of letting me walk away, she followed me, still talking. "You might not care about me, but don't punish Jake for something that isn't his fault," she said, her voice growing sharper. "He loves you, Emily. He sees you as family." I stopped so suddenly she almost ran into me. I turned to face her, my patience completely gone. "I don't care," I said coldly. "I don't care how he feels. I don't care what you want. I don't care about any of this." Lisa's face twisted in shock. "How can you be so heartless?" "Heartless?" I scoffed. "You want to talk about being heartless? You slept with a married man. You tore a family apart. And now you expect me to clean up your mess?" Her mouth opened and closed, but I didn't give her a chance to respond. "You are disgusting to me, Lisa," I continued. "A home-wrecking, selfish, pathetic woman who sleeps with married men and then acts like the victim when people don't bow down to her." Her face went pale. She actually staggered back like my words had physically hit her. "Stay away from me," I finished, my voice like ice. "You will never be my family, and neither will your kid." For the first time since I had met her, Lisa was completely silent. And I took that opportunity to walk away, leaving her standing there, speechless. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in a long time, I knew she finally understood. I barely had time to process the confrontation before my phone started blowing up. My grandparents had heard about what happened, and they were furious. The first message came from my grandmother. "Emily, what on earth did you say to Lisa? She's devastated." Then my grandfather. "This isn't how we raised you. We don't recognize the person you're becoming." I rolled my eyes. Of course, Lisa ran to them playing the victim. And of course, they immediately took her side. I typed back a quick response. "Maybe you should take a good look at your son before you start judging me." That only made things worse. My phone lit up with message after message, guilt trips, disappointment, accusations. "How can you be so cruel? You used to be such a kind girl. This bitterness is poisoning you. Do you even hear yourself?" I didn't respond. I just stared at the screen, feeling an exhaustion that went beyond physical. It was the kind of tired that settled into your bones when you realize some people would never see the truth, no matter how clear it was. They wanted me to feel guilty, to feel like I had done something wrong. But I didn't. I knew exactly who I was. And I knew exactly why I had said what I said, so I did the only thing left to do. I blocked them. For the first time in a long time, there was silence. No more messages, no more guilt trips, no more people trying to force me into a life I never wanted, and it felt good. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally breathe. No more forced relationships, no more guilt trips, no more pretending. Cutting my dad out of my life was easy. Cutting out my grandparents? That was harder. But in the end, I knew it was necessary. But even now, a small part of me wonders, was I too harsh? I know I could have just kept walking when Lisa approached me. I didn't have to say what I said, but at the same time, how many times was I supposed to ignore it? How many times was I supposed to let them guilt trip me into a situation I never wanted? People say, "He's just a kid," like that changes everything. But no one ever asks why I should be responsible for him in the first place. I never signed up for this. I never wanted this. I never agreed to be a part of their family. Maybe my words to Lisa were cruel, but was I really expected to just keep taking it? To keep letting her force herself into my life and guilt me over a situation she created? And my grandparents, did they really expect me to just accept everything and play along? To act like my dad was still the same man I once looked up to? I know what I feel is right. But feelings aren't always facts. So I have to ask, was I the asshole for skipping the party? For refusing to be in Jake's life? For finally telling Lisa exactly what I thought of her? Was I wrong for standing my ground? Or was I just doing what I had to do to protect myself? What do you think?